Hello everybody and welcome to another week of Toffees Tryhard Tuesdays, where we learn to try a little bit harder. I am your host, the Grand Wazoo. Sitting here with me is my all-the-time co-host and birthday boy today, Mr. Blue 22. How's it going, Blue? Happy birthday.
Thanks, man. It's going, man. I'm trying.
You're a little older. It's a less fun as you get into your later 20s. It's just, you know. And,
later 20s, like, come on, this is still mid-20s, all right? 26 is still the mid-20s.
You're on the
26
down
is the new
slope,
16.
Man. You're on the down slope. Sitting with us as well as a special birthday gift, not necessarily, but it just lined up this way, is a great member of the community and a longtime friend of .p, and that is Stephen Toffees Pierce. How's it going, man?
I'm good. I didn't realize it was your birthday, man. You taping on your birthday? That's some next level stuff right there. I myself go to sleep early on my birthday because I'm older.
That's what it means to be older, I think. You stop doing anything. It's just leave me alone and let me hibernate for a bit.
Your wife's like, what do you want to do on your birthday? You can do anything. And your response is, I'm going to nap and you're going to watch the baby.
There you go. Blue, that's maybe next year when your kid is, going to be like a year old or so almost.
Almost a year. He'll be almost a year old, yeah.
That is intense.
Part where it becomes really terrible. Okay.
Yeah, we just had the shower this weekend too, so it's like mega in your face that this is happening very soon.
The moment has arrived.
Oh yeah.
Not quite yet. You could still cut and run, so that's good. We'll talk about escape strategies throughout. Now's probably not the time for it, but let's get into the topic of the episode right off the bat, kind of talk about how our pubs have been going and all that. Try to make a good effortless birthday episode for my co-host here, because we've been going for, a while now, maybe not a year, but we've been going for quite a while here at .p. Blue, it's great to have you. So happy birthday, buddy. And how have your pubs been going? We'll start you off first.
Man, it's been really good when I've been in a party with a bunch of the .p guildies. And it's been really bad solo, just really bad. No matter who I play, what I play, the style I play, it's been Sand King, Abaddon. I haven't played much carry, just because I don't know. I just have kind of lost interest in doing that kind of thing, and been experimenting a little bit. Still playing a little Void on the side, and that's been going well. But pretty much everything else has just been like hot garbage. And that's okay. Like, I'm still in that like 687 is kind of this new funky thing, and I'm having fun playing around with it. I'm getting into a new hero that I don't know that I should be, because I feel like once every 6 months I get this kind of feeling. But I've been playing a lot of Earth Spirit.
Oh boy, that could be really bad or really good. He's like, at the high level, you see that hero do lots of damage, but I don't know. He's like one of those cringe heroes in pubs, right? That you're just like that.
Jerax he makes it look so effortless.
Oh, it's not.
I know, it's like so not.
It's like so Dota air hockey, right? Do you have a lot of experience with Earth Spirit Toffees?
No, God, no. I mean, I have a lot of experience dealing with how much I hate him, but not playing him. He doesn't fit my style. I mean, I get what he does, and I appreciate the rotations in the ganks, but he just doesn't. He just doesn't fit my style of play. So I love when there's one on my team who knows what he's doing, but otherwise I hate that. I hate the character.
Yeah, he's like a powerhouse. Some people have predicted that he'll be, up there in first ban, first pick type situation, because we've been seeing him a bit as that kind of niche, I don't know, like strange offlane utility type role. But I don't know if we'll see it. We'll talk Manila later. Toffees, how are your pubs going? Have you had time to play much lately, or are you working too much?
It's been okay. This last week, I've got a couple of games in. Let's see. I think my ranked this week has been a 60% win rate, and then my unranked has been something ridiculous. Like when I play with my friends, it drops down to like 28.5.
But is the fun more? Are you having more percentage of fun?
Yeah, I also have, so here's the deal, and you guys probably can appreciate this. A lot of the guys listening, this is a sort of pub chat. Dota's a tough game, right? It's incredibly hard to adopt. It's incredibly hard to sort of come on board with. And honestly, a lot of my friends who get into MOBAs, I tell them to try Heroes of the Storm or something else, because Dota's a really tough game. And long story short, I used to do competitive raiding in World of Warcraft back in the day. And that was another game where to be at the top level, you had to, work your butt off, do dailies, raid for 5 hours, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. Then you had to go to websites afterwards and study statistics and min-max and work on rotations and spend hours at the practice dummy figuring out how to maximize your DPS.
It's like it is the thing you do, like you have like your life and then that's it.
About it.
Yeah, yes. I know. But Dota kind of becomes that way too, doesn't it? I mean, is that what you're segueing into?
It does, and I'm segueing that because we had one of my friends who raided with me once upon a time was probably one of the best priests that we worked with, and he had that level of commitment. So I play with a stack of guys that I've played with for probably the last 10 years of video games. A lot of us came over from WoW when we got tired of it. I think you guys probably know Snuggy, you maybe know Flub. A couple of those guys sort of have this pedigree of like we've been trying to be competitive gamers forever. Well, my buddy who left competitive gaming texted me like a month ago or 2 months ago and was like, hey, I'm playing League of Legends. I think my life's over. And I immediately texted him back and was like, well, it's over because I'm going to kill you if you don't transfer to Dota. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, I don't tell many people to play, but I know that you have the work ethic to play Dota and to not hate playing with you. So he works really hard. Like before he even started, he was watching videos and learning ward spots, but it's only been like 2.5 months at this point, right? So I play with him a lot in normal matchmaking. And we don't do well because he's trying to learn to play core, which means that I have to place hard support generally. And a lot of it's teaching, not so much winning, if that makes any sense.
And you have to, like, as your friends go through that, I'm having a similar experience. So this is a good way to kind of talk about my current pub experience. Roland, my brother's wife, my sister-in-law, is now learning Dota under the name Evanwood. And so she's like playing lots of Maiden and stuff and learning ward spots, and she's doing pretty good. But like through her refined interest in the game, I'm also getting that interest. It's a little different with you because you have to watch your friend kind of make those mistakes. Because it's a game that you have to hit your head on the wall a certain amount of times before anything clicks, and you have to watch that person do it. So that shows commendable patience on your end, because it was really hard to see Roland and Cyphus on this show in the beginning, watching them kind of stumble through it. But that's pretty cool that you're able to enjoy it. That's commendable, my friend.
It's enjoyable. It's definitely, there's still points where I break off and I'm like, all right, it's time for solo ranked now. Like I need to get out for a minute. But it's fun. I think the key is that my solo ranked has been going incredibly well since the international compendium came out. So
what have you been picking?
Axe.
Share with me your secrets.
Me too, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, when the ban phase comes up, I ban Slark, Invoker, or Tinker just because I hate dealing with them right now. If Axe makes it through, because everybody else seems to ban Axe, I just pick him up, snap pick him, because if Slark gets banned and Invoker gets banned, and I pick up Axe, then there's not as nearly as much I use in the phrase, there's not as much cancer for me to have to deal with in the game, right?
They could pick up like a shadow fiend,
I wanted to be the asshole, not deal with the asshole.
There you go.
And I ended up liking him. He sort of fits my style. I like the off lane and sort of being self-dependent. I spent a lot of time practicing his semi-random, or what's the phrase for it? I always forget the actual phrase. His spin isn't random.
The culling blade. No, that's
counter helix,
isn't it? Counter helix.
Well,
yeah.
No, counter helix.
Yeah.
It's not a random proc. I forgot what the term is, but basically
it's pseudo random.
It's pseudo random because as it goes on, it has a higher chance to proc, right?
Exactly.
So it's not necessarily random.
I spent a lot of time practicing. What I'll do is sort of being in lane with another hero, right-clicking them to pull creeps onto me, and then clicking off the creeps after 1 or 2 hits where I don't get a spin, and then sort of using that to manage how often I get to do that 150 damage, or whatever, to the 2 opponents.
That's interesting. I do a similar thing because I play carry a lot with Jug and his crits. When you pick up that early level of crit, you'll hit a few on a guys, and you'll know that because it's also the same roll, right? The pseudo-random thing, but different percentages. And so you know that you have one stored up in the next couple hits, you know what I mean? Just based upon logic or chance, I guess. But that's interesting. I've only just started playing Axe again. I played him way back when I was a super noob, but I picked him up since he's been relevant and found I really enjoyed him. I mean, like, setting up those team fights and stuff with Call is really cool. And in my case, missing tons of calls all the time, really, really cool to learn. But
it is. It's infuriating when they somehow interrupt your blink right before you do a blink call, and then you just like scream in agony.
Oh,
call off outside of a fight. But it's also insanely rewarding, in the late game when they've got a Slark because they managed to get him, who's insanely overpowered, and you pop in, get a call, and pop your blade mail, and he just destroys himself. And you're like, yeah, what now, huh?
The change with blade mail has just really made him relevant again, it feels like.
And that's what it is. I read the patch updates. I saw the Vanguard and the blade mail both as really powerful items. The fact of the way that it returns damage now is just so gosh darn strong. I said, I think that Axe is going to be a huge pub star. I don't think we're going to see him like all over Manila. Obviously, he's very easy to counter in a lot of different ways. But as far as pubs go, like I'm not a next level player. I analyze Dota, but more I talk about it. I love Dota, but I'm not a 5K. I'm not even a 4K player. And in my 3K world, Axe is a very strong hero.
I think you see him less at the higher level. I mean, you still do see him, but maybe not at the level he even was last year. Because sure. You have this like anti-armor meta going up, and also like the relevant heroes that you have up on the board are magic strong as well. You know what I mean? So it's just like he can still get ripped down by the magic damage, like even with a Crimson and all this shit. But I don't know. I agree. I feel like he's a fun, relevant hero to have because he just has an interesting play style. So it's good to have him in the scene and being played more.
He is, and keep in mind that he's also easy to counter. Like nobody seems to realize that if you pick up a hero that has return damage or any sort of damage over time, it just negates the blink energy, right? Like I can't deal with Vipers. I have a hard time dealing with Razors if they get their ultimate up before engagement. There's a lot of these heroes
with the Serpent Wards if they're like good about putting them down.
Nightmare, absolutely. So there's a lot of those things where Alchemist is actually a pain because the blink range is just outside of his acid spray if he knows how to do it. So you really have to sort of manage not getting your blink dagger triggered or offline.
Toffees, bro. I got it figured out. All right, you pick up Shadowblade. Obviously, come on now. Next level.
I'm sorry. I'm no jungling Legion commander. I refuse.
Shadowblade Axe. I'm telling you.
Oh God, can you imagine?
Next level.
No, you're wrong.
When in doubt, Shadowblade, right? That's just the Dota motto.
I kid. Shadowblade would be terrible, but also I would kind of like to see it wreck. I'm just saying.
He just doesn't have the right click to make it functional.
Whatever, guys.
Because you open with call and spin. You're not really right clicking.
When I'm going 32 and 42 in our game, after this, and I go Shadowblade Axe, I'm just saying I'm gonna record the shit out of it.
I'll tell you what, that's gonna go on YouTube. You 5 in a row with Shadowblade Axe and post it, and I'll retweet it as an actual strategy.
All right, it's on.
Yeah, it's gotta be 5 in a row. Like.
You can go to Silver Edge, and then his right click is just incredible, right? Just fun.
If I can make it to 5 total games of Shadowblade Axe without getting reported and put into low prio, like that alone should be worthy.
Commendable.
Yeah.
What other heroes are you guys seeing that are kind of relevant? And I don't know. You've been playing anything, Blue? That's super relevant to the meta or whatever. What people are playing, what kids are doing these days.
I mean, you know me, I'd like to say Elder Titan's getting played more. And, you see him a little bit more in some pro matches, and that's really cool. I hope to see him more in the Manila Major. But, I don't know, for me, I'm still just seeing the massive wave of the Slark picks. The Enchantress I don't really see anymore, which is kind of surprising, to be honest, because I still think that hero's super good, especially with the Dragonlance changes that they added. And
do you mean in the jungle position or like off lane?
Either way,
honestly.
Either way,
you think she's pretty
Either
strong.
way, I still think she does incredibly well. But Lifesteal, that's the other one I'm seeing constantly.
Yeah,
Lifesteal, I cannot get out of my pubs. I just and that's a hero that I just never enjoyed playing against or with, and just I don't know.
I think he's fun to play as a carry player. Just he's like Jug with the spin, you know what I mean, with his like little BKB ability. And so it's really good when they pick really strong magic damage to have another option there. But
I mean, he fits certain scenarios. I think that I think Lifestealer Slark are insanely popular right now in pubs. I can't get through a pub without seeing an Invoker generally unless they're banned out. LC Junglers is insanely popular below, I think 3.6-ish, 3.7. We've actually seen a huge rise, I think, in junglers in general in sort of that mid-tier bracket. And that's been frustrating for a lot of us. Alchemist is all over the place right now. Lion, in my opinion, is probably one of the strongest supports out there at the moment because of his lockdown, and his mana drain is just so killer to any offlaner who tries to deal with it. So I think those are some pretty popular heroes. The combo that got me I played a ranked game like 2 days ago, and it was one of those games where I was beaten so badly as a team and as a player that when they won, I wasn't mad, I wasn't frustrated. I typed out in chat, "Thank you for teaching me." Like, this was informative, and you guys executed insanely well. And it was the Slark. They did a Slark Phoenix combo that was insanely difficult to deal with in terms of, like, unless it was a competitive match where I was able to super counter pick them. It was nuts. Slark would come in, he would initiate every time, do a ton of damage, pop his ultimate, heal back up to full, do a bunch of damage. Phoenix would then dive at perfect timing. She farmed the nags incredibly fast. With Slark's help, that basically gave her last hits, I think, to get her off the ground, would dive in, pick up the Slark in the fireball. The fireball would survive because we didn't have enough right click to take it down. And then he would pop back out off cooldown at full health and do the same cycle over again. And it was just like, how the fuck do we deal with this? I don't know if I can swear. How the F do we deal with this in terms of a team fight? And we just couldn't do it.
This is a swearing cast. There might be non-smoking sections or whatever, non-swearing sections, but we keep it pretty cool, you know. Blue flies off the handle sometimes, swearing and stuff, insulting whatever group he can grab, and it's just like, okay.
Wow, okay.
Calm down, Blue. No, on your birthday, like it's no. We're pretty
flames.
open for the most part. We're a nerd cast, you know. Nerds swear, typically. I mean, how else do you cope with the bitter nerd existence?
I mean, we're talking about Slark. If that doesn't merit, you know, some expletives, I don't know what does.
And what were his changes exactly? Does anyone know that offhand? Like,
I could say off the top of my head. I think
the addition of Echo Saber was a big one.
Yeah,
Echo Saber is really nice for initiation. Honestly, I think big part of it is when I look at the meta and what's being picked a lot. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of strength and a lot of physical damage heroes, and the fact that he can come in there, wreak havoc, basically disappear so you can't right click him, and just steal stats the whole time is he gets so powerful in these sort of long running fights.
And there's not a lot of burst heroes. Those are all tanky heroes that kind of just do a lot of slow damage. They're meant to survive and be tanky, and those are the kind of heroes he wants to be trading with, because chances are he's not going to get caught out and burst down.
His style,
you know, whereas before we used to see a lot of Lena, Storm, you know, in the past, even Shadow Fiend, like those were heroes that could actually right click him down pretty hard if they were ahead. But now they're all like you see a lot more DK, a lot more of those heroes. Even Doom, if he, you know, doesn't get doomed, he's still like he just has a field day with all these heroes.
He's also one of the only heroes, I think he may be the only hero besides maybe Juggernaut, who has a built-in ability that allows him to do damage without taking damage. So he's a great counter to Blade Mail initiators, right? Because you Blade Mail, he pops his ultimate, he keeps burning you down, and he's not taking the return. So there's a lot of sort of value to the way that he's built in the current meta.
Those essence shift stacks are so strong too. He takes so many down, and like you said, he just ducks out of the fight. He's still taking 3 of every attribute, and then he's back in the fight hitting you again. So like if he doesn't win the initial engagement, he just jumps away and comes back after he's hit you a couple times. You know, it's annoying. It's annoying at lower levels, and it's annoying, you know, at mid levels of play. But do you see Slark that much in the pro scene right now, Blue? Like, have you seen any memorable like Slark games?
I see him picked still pretty often. I mean, I wouldn't say he was top tier. I think Toffees can answer this one a little better than I can, but I think just generally from watching some of the games, some of the Summit qualifiers, you still see him picked semi-regularly. I mean, there's still, I don't know, it's still kind of being figured out, at least from my perspective, as far as what's going to be the really popular lineups that people go for. You still see the random like Drow, Venge, Aura lineups. It's kind of cheesy. I don't know, I guess you'd say all-ins where they kind of want to win by the 20-minute mark, but you still see people picking Slarks and people picking DK a lot, which I like a lot. But what do you think, Toffees?
I think one of the struggles with Slark on a pro level, and it's not that he's not played, he is, but one of the problems that I have with him is he's a hero that can be countered, right? He has the ability that if you pick lockdowns, heavy burst, if you have the ability to sort of track his movements and stay with him, you can counter him. And what we see in the meta when you go over drafts and you sort of watch pro games is we live in an era where when I started watching pro Dota, a lot of teams would draft their supports early on and try to sort of hide their cores. But now it feels like it's the opposite. We see those powerful cores that you really want to play banned out and picked up in the first rounds. So if you're going to get your Slark and you really want to use him in that sort of we're picking cores early, then you have to show him work to a point where he gets countered. And I just don't think last pick Slark is something that we see very much. It's harder to fit him in there, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. If you think of a draft like rotatable pieces, you have your cores there as stagnant pieces that don't rotate, and then you like to rotate your strategy to suit different means. You can pick up different supports, you know what I mean? And that's what we're kind of seeing. They're locking in on these drafts around the cores, you know, and they don't need to alter that so much as they just need to alter how they utilize them, which I like.
We were talking about a little bit last night with DC and Complexity and Wings and some of these other teams that seem to like to sort of pick counters or pick around opponents, if that makes sense. Because basically what I think is happening in the pro scene is, you know, you guys have heard the football term, any given Sunday, I'm sure. Oh, yeah. And that's the idea that any given Sunday, if you train and you work hard, you can beat any other team out there. Maybe they get sick. Maybe they're off their game for the week. Maybe you're having an amazing game, but you can beat them. Dota, a couple of years ago, I would not say was an any given Sunday game. There were teams that would almost always win and teams that would generally lose. Now we look at the top, everyone going to Manila. If you look at the Manila list, there are very few teams on the group stages that I say they stand no chance of making it through. And that's a big shift from where we saw that, you know, a couple of years ago. So what I think we're seeing is a byproduct of that. And I don't have statistics. I'm not Nahaz. I'm not Modpacks. I don't do stats. This is based on general observation, sort of my feelings with Pro Dota, is that we're starting to see teams play what they know well, right? What they've practiced. Because it comes down to, there's a metric shit ton of heroes in Dota. And you can't just play this hero because he counters that hero anymore, because you have to play that hero exceptionally well on top of that. So I think that's where we've seen this shift from picking supports early and then sort of counter picking on the back end. And now, like you said, we're going to give our core one of his best 6 heroes to make sure that he can play the game that he wants. And we're going to pick supports and other offers, you know, maybe a 3 or a 4 to support that style of play, which is a huge shift from what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, you used to just, especially some of those more boring times, like a TI2, TI3, where it was like literally the 2 protect 1 bottom, where you just had the supports standing in the jungle off a ways, you know, like protecting the farming anti-mage or whatever. And those times did get me interested in the game, but I'm glad that the game has evolved past that, because it shows a lot of discipline to stick with it, as teams like, you know, people going to Manila have, like Alliance. I see Alliance and the work they've done, and it's just like, wow, you know, like there's a lot going into Manila here, and I feel like this is probably a pretty good time to segue into our full-on Manila team talk here. We have 16 teams going, and I'd like to talk about what you said, Toffees, first off the bat, and that's how close all these teams are, how anyone can really emerge the victor from OG to Mineski, right? We don't know. These teams are so close together. The teams that qualified, such as DC and all those other teams, they're top tier for a reason, and they're going to be there at Manila with something to prove. Blue, I haven't heard you say anything in a while. What's your prediction on Manila? Like, what teams are you looking forward to? Who do you think is going to perform really well?
Yeah, I think you have a good point where it's like there's a lot of question marks for a lot of these teams, even the teams that you would consider quote unquote like top tier. Team Secret hasn't played a lot, and when they have, they've kind of struggled in some tournaments, at least struggled compared to what, you know, you would expect from a Team Secret kind of team, and considering their lineup and how star-studded it is and things like that. And Digital Chaos is a team that has played a lot of NA qualifiers and had really good success against quality teams like Complexity. You know, and then you go to teams even like Fnatic. I mean, they had a lot of success at the Shanghai Major. They played really well there. They have kind of like they seem to just have MVP's number when they play them in online tournaments, and then they struggle during LANs. At least that's the common theme. You hear a lot from people. You know, there's all these CIS teams, Empire, Na'Vi, VP, who've kind of been bouncing around a lot, up and down results. Evil Geniuses, another team that's kind of in transition. So there's a lot of teams that don't seem to be on their A game, or at least have been hiding their A game, and haven't been playing a lot of big tournaments lately. So it's interesting to see, even if you look at like the Liquid Dota rankings, they have, MVP Phoenix at number 2. Who would have guessed that like a year ago, the MVP Phoenix would be your number 2 ranked team going into a $3 million major, right? It's just one of those times in Dota where anything can happen. And I think that you had a really salient point with that.
It's a growing pain. It's like a growing stage, I guess, not pains, tournament for a lot of teams. It's, and maybe it is growing pains. I don't know. Secret, we saw them kind of not do as well as they wanted to not too long ago after the reformation of their team. We see EG not doing exactly what they want to with, some would even call the people they picked up a downgrade in some sense. Secret certainly would, but I feel like we're getting over those growing pains with a lot of these teams, and we're going to be able to see great performances come out of this tournament. My big prediction, I think, is that we're going to see Secret and EG come out of their shells a little bit more, and hopefully give us good like top 3 finishes, both those teams. I believe in PPD. Like, I feel like he is one of the best drafters in the game. Maybe not to a Puppy level, just because Puppy has, I don't know, Puppy has something else, an X factor. But I think EG and Secret will do very well. I think they'll finish in the top 3, and that's my prediction. What about you, Toffees? What do you think about the Manila?
So, I think one of the things to address is you agreed with me when Mista said that we've seen sort of the bottom rise to the level of the top, and a big part of that, and I think this goes to the community, to the viewers, to the watchers, to the sponsors, is the fact that these lower tier teams 2 years ago, even a year ago before TI, were teams that were struggling to survive, that they were going to school and playing, that they were working full-time jobs and playing when they could. And we've seen this sort of evolution where even these sort of lower 8 teams are now sponsored. They're now funded. They now have the ability to play and train. I mean, if you look at the Manila Major, Group A, B, C, and D, we have 16 teams there. And if we had looked at the same list last year in a major LAN leading up to TI, at least 25%, and this is, again, I'm not a statistics guy, and I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, I haven't checked my numbers, but I would bet that 25% of the teams on this list would not have sponsors, would be calling themselves No Tidehunter or, Sad Boys, or those sorts of teams waiting for their chance to sort of get signed. And I think that that's been a huge boon to bringing up the smaller teams and making them more competitive. And I think that that's something that as a community, we, the viewers, the listeners, people who are tuned in, the people who watch Pro Dota, really should clap themselves on the back for, because the fact that they're tuning into tournaments year round, that they're supporting these teams nonstop, brings sponsors in and allows them to play at a higher level. So I think that's what's going to make these majors, this major particularly, very, very good. Now, in terms of coming out on top, Group A for me is sort of the could go anywhere group. I'm really excited about watching those games. OG, Empire, Newbie, and Complexity, all of them could come out on top too.
Is that your group of death, you'd say?
That's my group of death, because I think that some of the other teams that are, I think that that's the group of death in terms of that's going to be one that's going to be fun to watch, because I think every match is going to be a barn burner. We're not going to see tons of blowouts. I think that the other groups are close. Anybody could win, but we're going to see teams figure out other teams and then just destroy them completely. And I don't think we'll see that in Group A. Group B is interesting to me because I think I want Secret to do well in terms of, like, I'm an EG fan, North America. It's what we do out here. Secret is like the rival to EG, right? So sort of like a Liverpool, Everton, Manchester United, Chelsea sort of deal going on. I love to see them play. That's my new El Clasico. So I want Secret to get through because I think Evil Geniuses should go through, and then they can clash in the main event, and that'll be a lot of fun. That said, DC and Wings have been playing out of their mind lately. Both of them, Digital Chaos is one of the strongest players, I think, in North America when he's allowed to play as heroes, and that's Moo. And Wings doesn't draft in any way that makes sense to me. I know that, like, a lot of analysts are out there trying to figure them out right now for the teams that are hiring them, and are just like, I don't get it. Like, these guys draft totally off what they want or what they're excited about or what they think will work, and then they make it work. So they're hard to prepare for. You have a team that's hard to prepare for, and DC, which is on an incredible winning streak. And Secret's got to get through both of those teams, not to mention Na'Vi, who has nothing to lose, right? Na'Vi's one of those teams that's got a good lineup. They've been getting progressively better. And if they lose, no one's angry at them. But if they win, the entire world supports them.
And they're hungry for it, it feels like, as well. Just like Alliance was, to get something in the bank after so long of just being considered kind of washed up and faded.
Yeah. And I think that they've gotten past the stress portion, right? Like Alliance, I think, was in the same boat until earlier this year, where they felt the burden of we have to win, and finally kind of stepped back and said, let's just play our game. And when that happened, you saw Alliance take a huge surge forward and play significantly better. And I think Navi's finally hit that point. So hopefully they come out on top. I think like Group C with Liquid, Alliance, Vici, Reborn, and Fnatic is going to be really intense. I wish Alliance was going to the big show, but that one feels like Liquid and Fnatic kind of have the upper hand for me. Though I'd love to see Alliance advance, as they're one of the first teams I ever watched in Pro Dota. So, my old love versus my love of incredibly crisp play. We'll see how that one goes. And then Group D is, I think, probably the easiest one for me to say. Evil Geniuses and LGD are probably going to go through. They're both playing very well. They're both phenomenal. But I want to touch on this. You said this about EG. You said that you believe in Peter Dagger. And I will say this. I believe in Peter Dagger as a drafter. And I think that he is, and I'm going to get crucified for this, potentially a better drafter than Puppy, but only in one circumstance. When he knows his team very well. Yeah. I think that he is a little bit better at drafting for his players and the game versus just the game, if that makes sense.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the struggles he's had right now is the fact that he's got a new team and he's sort of still figuring out the flow and how these guys work together. And this is going to be an important major for them to really get that fine-tuned for TI, because
it's just so rough with these locks, because it's like they spend all this time practicing with these teams, and then like that's the one time to switch. And so it feels like all that time spent mixing up with that team wasn't worth it. But sorry, what were you saying?
And then you got the problem of like, did Secret maliciously make the trade at the point where they did because EG had to scramble to find somebody? That's probably a lot to weigh on you and sort of bounce back from. They just changed management, right? Charlie's no longer the manager. He works at Twitch now. Phil's doing a great job with them, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a whole new setup, and they're adjusting. That said, EG won last year. That was $17 million in the bank, right? They're doing pretty well. Even when they don't win, they still make a fair amount of money off of these tournaments. So it's not like they're going into this saying, we have to win the $3 million. They're going into this saying, we have to perform well, and we have to be ready for TI in 3 months.
Yeah, that's a good question that I actually want to bring up is, I mean, the stakes for this are massive. It's still a $3 million tournament no matter what. But do you think that at the end of the day, if, say, EG comes in 5th or 6th, and they seem to find a formula that has some success, but they run into a team that just is, like just running through the competition, maybe like how Newbie was playing, right? Where they went like, 28-0, 28-9-0. Do you think that a player and or squad like EG would take that and go, realistically speaking, for a relatively new team that we have, that's a success for us? Do you think they take that mentality going into it?
Gamer pride is a real thing, and I think that teams like EG have a mentality that they're going to win everything they go into, and if we believe otherwise, we're crazy. They are saying we're going to go win this. This is what we want. Now, do I believe that a team like Evil Geniuses or Secret or OG, who probably has a invite to TI, especially EG because they're the returning champions, and last year we learned that that's a guaranteed invite, are they as worried or stressed out if they don't do well or they lose? Probably not as much as, say, like Complexity. If Complexity screws the pooch, they're going to be really frustrated because that's a huge chance for them to secure a shot at the $17+ million. So no, after the fact, I don't think they get as broken up about it necessarily, which is good for them because it means they can approach how do we fix it with a more, even keel, whereas other teams might need more time to recover. That said, I don't think that there's been suggestions maybe these teams sort of short play these tournaments or don't go in with full force. I don't think that's the case. Maybe down the line, we'll see teams start to use gamesmanship. Like if you think about it, if Evil Genius is made it to the grand final and they know they're going to TI and they were going up against a team that they figured out and they said, I can beat this team every single time. Then you go, does it behoove them then to let this team beat them? Because that means that team guaranteed goes to TI and is another team that they can beat for the 17 million. And none of them do that right now. But the question is there that sort of gamesmanship that's ever going to come into the game of Dota? And I'm
not when there's a lot of money separating that. I think like it's 1.1. It's 1.1 million. I think for
and I think the
first place,
the other
like
argument
500K or something for second, 600K.
I think the other argument for that also is that this team might be you might view as like a really good team or one you have like a great strategy against, but with the nature of the game and patches and changes and small tweaks to the meta, I don't know that they're this is just my counterpoint for it, right?
No,
I don't know that there's enough worth in it to take that mentality, at least for on this scale, right? Maybe for a tournament like the Summit 5 or something like that, maybe you look at it differently, but yeah.
And I think Manila is a bad example, and I don't think we see that now. I just wonder if there's going to come to a point where, there was a really good article on, I think it was PvP Live that Gorgon wrote, I think it was Gorgon, about why the next 3 lands are so important, why Manila qualifiers is such a big deal. Because he's posited that we know, especially after the invites from Manila, that lands are a big inroad, right? So these next 3 lands are going to be a huge deal. Like this Summit, even though it's a casual tournament, is going to make or break these teams in terms of TI invites. That's why it's such a big deal that VP got eliminated or disqualified, or they withdrew, I guess, technically, because of the situation, because that was a shot for them to get in front of Valve to win a LAN and potentially secure an invite to TI. So then the question is, maybe for a smaller tournament where the difference in winnings becomes $60,000 or $70,000, is there a chance that you start to see sort of gamesmanship come into Dota down the line? It's not here today. These guys have way too much pride in their game. And that's why I love Pro Dota, is these guys are really just Dota players who say, all right, well, I guess I'll take your sponsorship money and win a ton, but I just want to play Dota.
I think there's the type of guy and player, and I don't mean just guy. Of course, there's females that play Dota too, but in professional play, I feel like there are definitely people that would, and then definitely people that would not. You know what I mean? Just based upon their view of the game, whether it's more pragmatic or whether it's more, I don't know, just depending on their demeanor, I guess. But that's an interesting thing to posit, because it's like these majors are going to be the deciders for who gets invited. And who Valve really values is someone who they can build a brand with, and how that team can build a brand at TI. So that is really interesting. Of course, we'll see Manila as it develops. We'll be watching here, and we'll have plenty of coverage. We have Korean Barbecue over there doing the translations for the Chinese team. So look for him over there. And I feel like we can move on to the next leg of our show. We're going to be...
Hold on.
What?
Hold that thought.
Okay.
Because I have one last thing that I wanted to bring up, Toffees. And that was when you were talking about Group D. You were talking about EG, and, how that group might be a cakewalk between, EG and LGD taking the top 2. You did not mention MVP Phoenix. Now, was that just an omission because you didn't think they were good enough, or you forgot about them?
No, I think so. Here's the thing about Group D is if we live by the theory that we're in any given Sunday world of Dota, anybody can win. Then I look at that list and I say all 4 of these teams are great teams. However, based on performance, synergy, roster, and past what they've been able to put together, LGD and Evil Geniuses have a strong pedigree and have been winning in terms of really just dominating the scenes that they're based out of. Evil Geniuses is the #1 North American team, period. No questions asked. They're the top. Yes, they've had some hiccups, but I think we can all still agree their roster, their style of play, the backing that they have from their corporation puts them at #1. To me, LGD is in a position to be battling for that top spot in the East. And I don't think MVP Phoenix is fighting for that Eastern sort of we rule the world status, if that makes sense. So what I think it comes down to is in a group showing where everyone's going to play each other, LGD is going to be more consistent, whereas MVP Phoenix will have more flashes of brilliance. And in group stages,
who thought Korean Dota was going to be such a they are a really good team. They have a couple squads, don't they? Or have they just boiled down to that one squad now? Do you know, Blue?
They used to have 2 squads. I know that.
They had the youth squad, and then they had Phoenix.
No, they had MVP, and then they had MVP and MVP Phoenix, and then they split it off into Phoenix and Hot 6, which was their sponsor.
I thought they had a new team, like a
Korean
youth squad or something. Maybe they do.
I don't think they have that anymore, but I think they do still have that MVP Hot 6 team, but it is more of a youth squad, quote unquote. It doesn't have. I don't think it has like the top level players. For all intents and purposes, it's MVP Phoenix as their number one squad, and the only one honestly that we might be talking about, at least on the tier 1 Dota level. So I just thought I'd give them some love, because those boys, I mean, they've been doing some work, and consistently too, which is, I think, even more surprising.
Yeah, they've been working hard for a while.
They definitely deserve love, and I would give you that. But for me, when you look at the lineups alone and sort of who makes up the core, yeah, QO is phenomenal. Forev makes great plays. Dublu is a good drafter. But if you stop and think to yourself, who is on the LGD roster right now, you're looking at Aggressive, maybe, Zhao 8, September, MMY, and Banana's their sub. And I mean, he's a great Chinese player in general. Like, so you've got a 5-man roster who not only has the backing, but has a LAN pedigree as well and experience. And to me, when you get to a major like Manila, when there's $3 million on the line, that really comes into play. And I think that LGD will rise to the occasion.
All right.
I'm not shitting on Phoenix. I just think consistency is going to be important here.
You bleed blue, and you're a blue-blooded American, right? North American.
And
now, if you're postulating, if you think MVP Phoenix could be EG, that's a different ballgame than the LGD MVP, which seems like your comparison right now.
Yeah, I honestly, I like LGD's lineup. You're right. It makes a lot of sense. A lot of the names are there, but we have a lot of big name lineups who have not had a lot of success recently. Team Secret, for example, and LGD's kind of kept pretty quiet. They've been pretty, they've been sticking to their local tournaments and things like that. Local, I mean, the whole country of China.
Right.
Those it's tournaments, so we don't know that much about them. But yeah, it would be something cool to watch. I'm just saying, I love MVP. I think if you have to give, force me to make some predictions, I'm going to go with my heart on this. And AUI 2K is my favorite player, so I want EG to be number 1. Realistically, I think they're going to be number 3. And then number 2, I still like MVP. I'm going to take them number 2. And then number 1, I want OG, because
they could do it.
Big Daddy No Tail is still my boy. So people still give that guy so much shit, but he makes so much space.
So you think MVP is going to be number 2 in the overall?
Yeah, that's what my heart says. Wow. Honestly, if I think about it more critically, there's a myriad of other teams you could pick. I mean, even Complexity or VG Reborn, it's another team that we haven't talked about a lot, but has a lot of potential. But this is who I want. This is my gut pick. All right, and this is who I want to win. So for me, especially with these, the non-TI tournaments, I go with my gut on this, and I want OG, MVP, and EG top 3.
If we're going gut, give me EG, Complexity, and Digital Chaos, baby.
Okay.
There you go. Now I got to get in on this.
That's what we're doing. Let's just do that.
I'm gonna go.
Okay,
I'm gonna go secret OG EG, and maybe that's a little boring, but I think Fly's drafting is incredible. I think Secret's going through the growing pains with a great team in EG. Got to say the PPD. He excites me. So we'll see. It'll be coming up in the next week. I think we start on June the 3rd, right, with group stages. So everybody tune into that. That's really fascinating. Any closing thoughts from either of you before we move on?
I'll say this because I said it on a show that I did it was before Frankfurt Major, about a month and a half before Frankfurt Major, when they were putting together the new Complexity squad. I said that they were going to finish in the top 5 at this tournament, and I'm going to stand by that. So I've been running on that prediction that they would be a top 5 Manila team for about 3-4 months now. So that's my prediction. I hope that they stick to it and prove me right. So go top 5 Complexity.
All right. Yeah. They've, speaking of teams that have been working hard, they are definitely a team that has been working their asses off. So it'll be cool to see how they develop throughout this tournament. A big part of a tournament is, of course, just kind of learning your teams as you play sometimes. And that's what makes groups so interesting in this structure. So we will see. I know it'll be an exciting one. Anyone who plays Dota knows that it's hard to balance sometimes when you want to improve at the game with real life. Like Blue, as we mentioned earlier, as a kid about to be born, his Dota time is probably going to decrease a while, or he's gonna have to train his baby to be a support, like one or the other. Toffees, of course, is a father, and since we had you on the show as well, we kind of wanted to ask you how you unwind and how you play Dota, and how you've seen yourself growing and your skill improving since you've have other things, occupying your mind.
Yeah, no, it's been terrible. My skill has dropped off horribly. I was a high 3s player, and I dropped all the way to 2,800 during the first year of my child. I fought my way back into the threes recently, which was great. But a lot of it comes down to you just don't have time to play anymore. I mean, there was a post on Reddit where a gentleman was asking, dads of Dota, how do you do it? And it really comes down to if you're, I am with my son all day, all evening. He goes to bed at about 8:30 at night. And obviously you have a choice if you can spend time with your wife and your child before they go to bed, or you can disappear into the basement and play Dota. And I choose to put family first. So I hang out with them and I cook dinner every night for my family, and we watch some TV together, and we usually play on the ground for the last hour so that he can fall asleep. And once he goes to bed, it's usually about 9. And then it's either an hour with my wife of, adult watch Game of Thrones sort of thing. Or if she's tired, I go down, I get to play an extra game of Dota. So long story short, if my wife is sleepy, I play Dota. If she's not, then we watch Game of Thrones. Either way, I go to my basement at about 10:30 every night and get in 1 or 2 games before everybody's too drunk to play. And then usually when that's finished, I sit down and I do prep for shows, render videos. Tonight, we're doing an interview. When we're done with this, I'll spend the next probably 2 to 3 hours getting the new lineup for the Dota 2 broadcasting channel up and running. And I go to sleep at about 3:30 every morning. And I wake up at 7 with my son. So
So I don't expect to sleep, Blue. And also I'll be better than you for a while.
If you want to play Dota and you want to make content and you want to have a family, sleep becomes a difficult thing to have.
Oh,
you'll be
not what I wanted to hear.
You'll be a grumpy Blue, dude.
You do get it transitions easily.
Yep.
It's not a tough transition, Blue. You do have the first couple of months. The baby is essentially just a poop machine, and much of the feeding will be done by your wifey. So you will have time to play Dota, just less time. And what you'll start to do is you'll see this reduction, right? On like a Saturday afternoon, I used to play 5 or 6 games. And then now at the first couple months of your baby, it's maybe 2 or 3 games on a Saturday afternoon. And then once your baby starts to walk, then you're like, maybe it's 1 game on a Saturday afternoon. And then once they start talking and screaming and, need your attention 24/7, you're like, maybe 1 game Saturday after they go to bed.
And then when they put you in the cold, dead ground, it's probably 0 games on a Saturday afternoon. So that's the end of the story, Blue.
I look forward to when he goes to college and I raise my Mamar again.
There you go.
And then he'll beat you, and he'll be like
a few more years now.
He'll be called like Toffees Jr. the Poner, and he'll wreck you, and he'll be like, "Suck it, Dad."
I mean, and that's true. There's definitely a real possibility he could be playing with me by the time that he's 9 or 10. He could be at TI by the time he's 13. If that happens, then I'm sure that I'll be much better at Dota because I'll have somebody to train me. I guarantee he'll be better than I am. I mean,
I don't want to expose him to that environment.
Yeah, it's definitely a delicate thing.
Dota.
We have to have the talk about.
I would just go in and mute everything ahead of time.
Yeah,
you can't have voice chat. Just have it turned off in general, and
it's your parental controls. Just mute everyone.
Just mute everyone, so you can learn to play without game sounds. And imagine how much better he'll be when he learns about game sounds.
Just the perfect player, perfect communication,
right?
And he can play with Blue's kids. I don't have a kid, so I'll be getting like 6K up here because I don't have a kid. No, I'm joking. That will never happen. I can't even blame kids for holding me back. It's just me. I've capped out. But the difference between like 4, 5, and 6 is so interesting to me because once you get up in that high 4s and 5s, it feels like most people have really mastered much of what Dota has to offer, right? And then it just becomes how good are you at processing the minutia quickly. And that's where I really find like these high MMRs super fascinating. When you watch sort of comparisons of a 5K game of a known player to like a 9K game of a known player, and just the small things they do differently is really interesting to me. So
yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that other than watching that because we are here mired in the mid 3Ks. I haven't calibrated my my international rank yet, but I'm excited for that just to see a fresh take on, see what happens with the calibration. But yeah, we're still stuck in the mid 3Ks for both myself and Wazoo, and
the perpetual trench.
The goal of our show is really trying to get out of it, and we have not been completely successful.
It's better than the 2s. I spent time in the 2s, and it was a nightmare from hell. So, and that's the hard part about doing content and sort of. I know a writer for a website who his boss was a normal skill player, and he is a high skill player. And before his articles would be published, his boss would refuse to play Dota with him because they wanted to make sure that none of his games showed up as normal skill if somebody went to check his qualifications for an article. And there's this other side of things that we don't ever really talk about in terms of like content creators and analysts and stuff, where people legitimately look you up and see, do I want to pay attention to them? Do they play in a very high skill bracket? So ranked is a little nerve-wracking in some ways.
Yeah, that's true. It is kind of a weird judgmental space where, like, apparently if you aren't like 6K plus, you have nothing of, importance to say about anything gameplay related.
Which is wrong. I mean, if you look at anyone in the community, you look at any of the large, look at Toby, for God's sake, look at Slacks, look at all these people that don't have a lot of technical proficiency. Look at Sheever. I mean, she's at every event. She never sleeps. Look at OD Pixel. I mean, the list goes on and on. Some people have different skills. Some is a mechanical basis for Dota, and some, make skills. And some people are gatekeepers, unfortunately. That's like, you're not good enough to enjoy this or whatever. And some people are conduits, like you are, Toffees, with Coffee with Toffees and with Around the Pit. You foster an environment where people can belong no matter the skill level. And that's what we try to do in .p. I think it's working a bit. I don't have any shame for like playing a game as much as I have and being as bad as I am at it. Sometimes I wake up in the dead of night, like clutching my heart, like, no, like wasted youth or something. But whatever. I love Dota. Fuck it. That's what it comes down to.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
What we can all relate to is like being those guys who wake up as they're taking a shower. They're like, fuck, should have bought BKB that one game.
Yep. The drive to work, you're just like,
I think, AG brought that up not last week, a couple weeks ago with us when we had him on the show, and it was so validating hearing him say that, because I thought I was the only guy who did that. But when you realize that we are true tryhards, we are tryhards and proud, so it's cool to have people like yourself on who are in the trench with us and struggling and learning and growing and getting better.
Fighting the good fight.
Absolutely.
Fighting the good fight.
I should warn you about this. I don't know if you flame or get angry a lot, Blue, when you play Dota. Prepare for whatever you currently have to multiply by like 65 times.
Really?
Well, because the problem is right now, if you get a shitty game of Dota or a feeder or a bad player,
you just move on, right?
You move on, you play the next one. But when you become a father or you have these life responsibilities, I get one game a night if I'm lucky. And that is like, I can choose. I can have an hour of Steve time to watch a TV show I like. I can have an hour of Steve time to read a book, or I can have an hour of Steve time to play a video game. So I choose to play Dota 2. And then that jackass shows up who's just like mid or feed and starts feeding. And like you realize, holy shit, I literally just lost all of my free time for today. Like I've worked my ass off all day and taken care of my family and my kids and my wife. And this is the time for me. And you're ruining that because you're an idiot. And it's so hard not to just lose your mind. And like, I've done it 2 or 3 times and have just been like, please God, don't end up on Reddit. Because it's so bad.
I have to ask, this is another thing that I worry about, because I'm one of those guys who will never abandon a game.
Right.
Like, I just won't do it.
Period.
I will. And if I don't think I can finish the game, I will not play it. If it's like, I have 45 minutes, but I don't know this game, maybe this game could go an hour, I won't play.
Same.
Has your abandon rate gone up since you've had him?
No, because if there's any chance of me having to leave a game, I play limited.
Okay, so you're like me. All right.
I have been promoting subtly a dad mode for Dota to put out that allows, it's the same format as limited, except the bots are unfair. And it's got all the heroes, because it would be really nice to have a mode where I can play the heroes I want to play. But if shit happens and my kid wakes up, the mode has an understanding that when you join it, people might leave. And I think that would be great for dads. It would be great for Friday and Saturday nights. All the drunks would get funneled over to there. And I think it would just be better in general for those of us who just, I want to play when my kid naps, but I don't know if he's going to nap for an hour or 2 hours.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Like, I've been playing 10v10 for those instances because people can drop and, whatever. That's not a big deal. And no one really cares that much about winning that. But you still get the same kind of vibe, but it's still it's like 10v10. So the whole game is weird.
Yeah, and that's the point is I want to I'm a perfectionist. I want to play. I don't even play. What do you call them? Like custom games. Except there's that one Battleship one that's really awesome. But I don't play them because I want to be in lane, last hitting, like rotating, warding, and that's why I play limited over it. Because the skill level's lower, and that sort of sucks. But it gives me a chance to really sort of practice trying to manage the mechanics because I'm not as worried about getting rotated on, right? Like I don't play limited as a carry and expect to be rotated on in the first 6 minutes because it's just not going to happen. So I can really focus on the mechanics of last hits and pulls and creep management and things like that.
Well, I think it makes you
this feels good.
Makes you care about your time with the game a little bit more. You definitely still have that passion, so that hasn't died, and that's important. Blue, it's not all going to be so bad.
And no, it's actually really a relief. It's amazing, and honestly, what you give up for what you get is pretty freaking dope.
There you go.
Yeah, sometimes I think I'm not giving up much. You know, after the last few matches I played, it really feels that way.
That's fair.
But guys, cool. We've kind of run our time here. I do want to discuss an item of the week because it's something we've dedicated to having on the show for a couple weeks now, and I was a huge critic of the tome, the knowledge tome that gave you experience, and I've grown to like it. So I'd like to discuss that item. What do you think of it? It's been in the game for a little bit now. It's something that guarantees experience. What do you guys think?
Toffees, why don't you go first on this one?
I like it because I think it's small enough experience boosts that by the time it becomes relevant, it's not maybe a core uses it to get to 16 or something like that in a desperate situation, but it's pretty rare that it's going to have a high impact on your cores. On the other hand, it can be the difference between life and death and just feeling completely out of place as a support, especially in a pub game. So I like it in the sense of, even as a carry, like I play a lot of off lane lately and a lot of core. And if I start to pull ahead and I get good farm, I'll finish an item and then I'll buy the tombs and drop them on the floor at the base.
Yeah.
And I think that's, as a, hey, you guys have been doing great with wards. Here's something that I can help out with besides just buying a set of wards for you.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a bit. You just buy them for a support in your lane or something. Mm-hmm. And that works.
I'll look at Lion. I'll be like, Lion, you've been awesome in this lane. There's two tomes on the courier for you to use. Hopefully there's one because hopefully he's buying them as they cool down. But I think it's a really cool item. I don't think that it's a high enough game impact that it's worrisome to me, if that makes sense. Like some of the items that they brought out, I think the teardrop, for instance, I think that the windlace have some pretty big ramifications to the game. Whereas the tome just seems like a way to make it more fun. Yeah.
It's just something
it's a way to make it.
It gives a little bit of insurance to the 4 or 5 position. It feels like a little bit more.
There's 2 kinds of changes, or 3 kinds of changes to Dota. There's the Dota fix change. There's the change that makes somebody stronger or the game, like the meta changes. And there's a change that just makes the game suck less. And that's a change that makes the game suck less. And I love changes like that.
That sums it up very well. I called it incorrectly when it came out. I thought it would be a more impactful item, but it's been a good change. So I just wanted to correct myself on it. What do you think, Blue?
I like the tome, and I think you guys kind of summed it up pretty nicely.
Yeah, that was a good
What I do like about it is that it can be an X factor at specific times, like you mentioned. If you're just that one tick away from experience range to get to level 11 or something on a big like an off laner or something,
because you don't want your supports rotating out to like just go to a jungle creep if you're setting up or something. You know what I mean? Like now you can just buy that, tick it over, and you're good to go. So yeah,
or it's just way riskier too.
Yeah,
to try and do that, especially if you're behind and like you're a roaming support and things like that. So it is a nice like quality of life item, and on like a way less important level, I do love the sound effect it makes.
Yeah, it's the fluttering of the pages. Thing. Yeah, you feel like you're getting knowledge in real life. It's just like, all right, reading a book. It's a real book, not a Kindle. It's a real tome. But okay, guys, we've run pretty long. We've covered everything we wanted to. Toffees, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been great to have you on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Talk and stuff. What have you been up to lately? We'd like to just kind of know what's up in the world of Toffees. I know you just got done doing the Collegiate Star League, was it?
Yeah, I was at DreamHack for the Collegiate Star League. We are getting ready for our next year, obviously, when college gets back in. Right now, they are, in my opinion, the #1 collegiate league, especially in Dota 2. We had a lot of really great teams. We flew them all to DreamHack for the grand final. They got to play at the LAN event on the same floor as the other pro games going on. So that was a ton of fun to sort of be there casting and hosting that thing. I look forward to seeing sort of college esports grow. I think you guys probably saw that I think it was the Pac-12 added, the Pac-12 network has slots for esports now going forward.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So that implies that if the Pac-12 TV network is going to be airing esports, that the Pac-12 schools will start to support esports, which I think is going to see a drive forward for the growth of sort of amateur esports transitioning to pro. So I'm excited about that. Other stuff, obviously Coffee with Toffees is still going on a regular basis. If you guys haven't heard of it, that's a Talking Heads podcast where we argue about different Dota topics for about 45 minutes. It's on Sunday night. It's usually at 11 p.m. If you go to my Twitter at Toffees TV, you'll see details on where to find that. I produce True Sight over on the Daily Dot every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So check that out. We do interviews, sort of talk about the scene on a live show that's scheduled. So that's always at the same time, always every single week. And the other big thing I'm doing, and I think that .p, actually I know for sure .p is probably gonna be working with me on this one. I spoke with Razor and they are excited about working with us to put forward a new amateur tournament. And I think that one of the things that I really like about the Dota scene is the fact that there is a lot of amateurs who play. And, you know, I play in a community softball league. I love the idea of going and playing with my friends. And I think that should exist more in Dota. So what we want to put out is a once a week sort of tournament bracket that lasts for a couple months at a time. And I think we're called like the podcast Pro-Am. And it's just going to be a place to sort of get your team involved, come out and play amateur. And I'm talking to Razor as well as some other groups, and they're interested in, say, kicking in some keyboards or Steam gift cards and things like that to the winning team to make it a little more fun, to put something on the line. But at the end of the day, it's just going to be a lot of fun. And I think the other cool thing we're working on is we're looking for a pro team, and I've got a couple that said they might be willing to play the winners. So if you win the whole thing, you get a chance to actually test your skill against a professional Dota team.
Very cool. Yeah, and we will be involved with that as it comes along. We will be plugging that on our shows, etc. So keep an eye open for that. Toffees, where can people reach you on Twitter and anything else?
100% the easiest way to reach me is at Toffees, just like the candy, TV on Twitter. I've got opened up for direct messaging, so you can direct message me. You can find my email there. You can find my personal name. I don't do Facebook. I'm stuck at Instagram. I'm Snapchatting a lot now, but that's only because I found it highly entertaining recently to like do it. I don't know. It's fun being a mini filmmaker sometimes. So there's that stuff, but Twitter is really the easiest way to find all that information. As well as if you follow me there, you'll also find out when the tournament's going to be registering. I spoke with our reps, and I think we're going to have registration up in the next 2 weeks or so, and then we'll do probably a couple weeks of registration to make sure we get everybody in. But definitely follow me there. I'll have more information. Obviously, .p guys will be involved with that. And if you're listening to this and you're a podcaster who has a podcast about Dota and you want to get involved with this, then shoot me a direct message on Twitter and become part of the Podcast Pro-Am team that's putting it together. And honestly, it's going to be not a ton of work for us. So you might want to get involved. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. We will keep an eye open for that. Blue, where can people reach you, my friend, my birthday boyfriend?
You can find me at .p_Mr. Blue on Twitter. You can find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/.ptv1, where you'll find some awesome content from ourselves as well as the Theorycraft Thursday boys. I know we've had some other Dota 2 content up there. I think a couple weeks back, or maybe a couple months back actually now, we used to see Roland trying out some jungle builds. So if you want to have a good laugh, put those on.
That is, yeah, it's funny. It's funny if you can watch it afterwards. It's not funny if you're in the game, I imagine. But
nice.
But is that all? That's where...
that's all I got, man.
All right.
That's all I got.
And as for me, guys, I am, of course, your host, the Grand Wazoo. Thank you for tuning in to .p's Tryhard Tuesday. You can reach me at .p_Wazoo. Find us at the show account, the main show account on Twitter at .p_show. I want to thank Toffees once again. Thank you so much for coming on. I know you're busy, have a lot going on. And as for you guys, thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. And remember, stay hard and stay classy.